With Oklahoma State seemingly less than a month away from their new football coaching decision, the odds-on favorites list now becomes more important than ever. And if we can't get a new football Bedlam game, then perhaps stealing a football Bedlam coach is the next best thing.
You are Locked On Oklahoma State, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma State Cowboys, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Howdy, y'all, and hello, all. Welcome back to Locked On Oklahoma State, your top stop for all things Cowboy and Cowgirl related. My name is Cody Stovall. I want to thank you kindly for stopping by to make this your first listen. We're available on all of your podcasting platforms, visually as well on YouTube. Find me personally on X at Alldeo State. Today, we're partially brought to you by Mazda. Like our players that sweat every detail, so does Mazda. Because when you make every move count, pulling off the unexpected is only the beginning. Stay tuned later for the highlights in this week's Moving the Game Forward movement with Mazda. And perhaps OU's offense coordinator, Ben Arbuckle, will be moving on down the road to Stillwater, Oklahoma here before too long. There's a multitude of reasons why this does make some sense. There's a multitude of reasons why Ben Arbuckle would be a really good option. Headman, maybe biting off a little bit much, but nonetheless, Ben Arbuckle is a name that is pretty popular and currently still sitting top 3 in the odds-on favorites list to be the next head coach in Stillwater, Oklahoma. Whenever you look at Ben Arbuckle, not just what he's done recently with John Mateer, it goes back further than that. Yeah, he's only 29, or he might be 30 now, but I'm pretty sure when OU hired him, he's only 29 years old. That's going to be a limiting factor. But he did play quarterback at West Texas A&M, and then he, after graduating, decided to start a career in the oil field, or the oil and gas industry, I should say. But after a while, he wanted to get back into coaching, so he became a volunteer quality control coach at Houston Christian. He worked there with Zach Kittley, now the head coach at Florida Atlantic. He was a play caller at Texas Tech from 2022 to 2024 and at Western Kentucky in 2021. Arbuckle coached in that role for 2 years in an unpaid capacity. He also worked for Uber in the meantime to help support his family. Fast forward years later, now he's getting paid $1.5 million a year per season at OU. The offensive coordinator was a role that he was familiar with, going to Seminole High School in 2020. He has since mentored NFL quarterbacks Bailey Zappi, Austin Reed, Cam Ward, and obviously John Mateer. When working with Zach Kittley, he was recruiting Arbuckle to Western Kentucky and his assistant in 2021. Arbuckle was then promoted to co-offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach in 2022 before leaving for Washington State in 2023. This season is Arbuckle's 3rd season as a college play caller. And one of the quotes that I've found pretty interesting reading about him was from the Daily Oklahoman. He was always grinding every time I saw him, Bailey Zappi told the Oklahoman about Coach Arbuckle. He was doing something for somebody, always doing everything he could to help the team out. He was working for free, and it worked out for him. He's earned everything he has. He's a great coach, understands the game of football, and he always did great by me. Ben was always asking, whether it was me or Kittley, questions and learning as much as physically possible. And you could see that when he went to Washington State and he stayed at Western Kentucky and was the OC, he learned a lot. Obviously, I learned a lot from him. I really can't speak enough about how awesome of a person and a coach he really is, according to Bailey Zappi. By the way, Bailey Zappi threw for 5,967 yards and 62 touchdowns in 1 year, not including all of his statistics at Houston Christian. Cam Ward, over 13,000 passing yards and almost 100 touchdowns. Again, going back and seeing what Cam Ward did before he made it to Power 4 D1 level, it's a little difficult. Then John Mateer, currently over 5,000 passing yards and 40 TDs. That is just under 24,000 yards and 202 touchdowns with his last 3 quarterback prospects that we can physically look at. Again, you can't go and see all of the stats from Incarnate Word or Houston Christian, so you can see what he was able to do at Washington State or Western Kentucky or OU. These are the numbers that you're able to view. And plus, one of the biggest benefits when you're talking about an innovative offensive mind, every quarterback that we just mentioned that's throwing for well over 5,000 yards in a season, they were all mobile as well. They all had the ability to extend plays, get outside the pocket, make the defense numerically have an adjustment phase. So I think Ben Arbuckle is a genius level individual when it comes to diagnosing not only offenses, but defensively what they're trying to do. It's all about the chess match. From coordinator to coordinator, you're guessing predicated upon all they've done in their career or all they've done throughout the course of the season on what their next play is going to be. So you make a list of, well, this is what they typically do in this scenario on first down, second down, third down. You do that all the way up and down the field. That has been a limiting factor for Oklahoma State the last handful of seasons under Casey Dunn. And even you have to look at Brian Nardo before you fired Todd Grantham. There's been a hole in Oklahoma State when it comes to just finding numerical advantages. Schematically speaking, that's what made Mike Gundy so great early on in his career. That's why Dana Holgerson and Todd Monken and even Mike Yursich to some degree were successful, because the blueprint that Mike Gundy laid forward was ways to recruit the 2 stars and still get them on the field, competing against the Texases and the OUs of the world and winning. That was the secret sauce for a long time. That is a secret sauce that Ben Arbuckle clearly has. Another big obstacle, seemingly, is guys like Nick Saban and Mike Gundy and Dabo Swinney. They have had an inability at times to make adjustments to the new age of college football. When you're seeing some of the younger coaches out here, like the Dan Lannings of the world, like the Caleb DeBoers of the world, they don't have that same limiting factor. So I think that Ben Arbuckle would be very relatable with the youth, but at the same point in time, barely 30 years old and only been calling plays for 3 years in his entire life, doesn't necessarily give you the warm and fuzzy feeling that he can handle the entirety of an operation. I think if you look back to even just what we've seen this year out of Doug Meacham, maybe he's a great, innovative offensive mind. But the in-game management, while also running the plays, was obviously too much. So he handed the OC reins to Kevin Johns this previous week. So we have to recognize the fact that Doug Meacham has been coaching for most of his whole life. He's been at several Division I Power 4 stops along the way. And he even still has difficulty with in-game management. It's one thing to know the offense. It's one thing to be able to teach a position, but it's another thing to manage all of the timeouts and is your punt routine ready and all of that while being on the sidelines. And I think that if you were to factor in Ben Arbuckle being a head coach, there's a lot of things that would go into that would be slightly problematic. I think that it's kind of absurd for a 29 or 30-year-old dude who's only been a coordinator for 3 years already getting looks as a head coach. And I don't think that would be a good situation per se at Oklahoma State, but it doesn't take away from the fact that he probably does deserve some more opportunities. He probably deserves a head coaching opportunity. I just don't know that a Power 4, Big 12, ACC kind of school is the right fit for him right away. Maybe the ACC, right? They could be willing to take a little bit more of a chance on an individual due to some potential instability within the conference and the future of realignment. You could make the argument that the Big 12 has future instability as well, because Utah and Texas Tech, and there is some interest evidently from the Big 10 and KU. But I do think that it's very obvious that the Big 12 is in a much better position currently than the ACC. Mazda is not just your run-of-the-mill vehicle, right? Mazda is helping move the game forward. For those who believe that it's not just about playing time, it's about redefining those moments. They do more than just simply put points up on the board, right? They move crowds, they move culture, they keep the game moving forward. This week's moving the game forward moment for us, I think when you look back at this last week of Oklahoma State, I think you got to give a shout out to the crowd. The fact that you walked into homecoming with almost 55,000 people in the stands when you only have one loss, and there's not a massive outlook for Oklahoma State getting many wins throughout the course of the season. The fact that the fan base in Stillwater is showing up just proves that we're starving to be great again at football. We're starving to have a coach that can get us back to that 8 to 11 win precipice that we've gone so accustomed to over the years. And when you follow what moves you, the unexpected is only the beginning. And just like there's more to every single highlight, there's also more to every single Mazda vehicle. So make sure that you go check out a Mazda today, where you can move and be moved by Mazda. All right, next we get to hop into the injury report, and not necessarily the name that is on there, but the fact that Zane Flores is not on there. And I think, Sam Jackson V has done a valiant job stepping up, rising to the occasion. I think, Zane Flores has had some nice moments. He's had a couple 200-plus yard games. He's still yet to throw a touchdown, which a lot of players on the Oklahoma State roster, unfortunately, have already done that. Maybe this is his opportunity. Him not being on the injury report, I think, does equal good things for Oklahoma State. It does give another avenue of exploration of the quarterback position that perhaps Texas Tech wasn't prepared for. And whenever you were able to sprinkle in Sam Jackson V with a healthy Zane Flores in the backfield, to me, that's when we got the best version of Sam Jackson V. What he's been able to do, or what he has done for Oklahoma State, is absolutely remarkable. And it's something that I think that you will always look back on and remember the wide receiver that was going to be the return guy, ended up being the quarterback. I think Sam's going to have that kind of effect. But I do think that this does give Oklahoma State a little bit more of an opportunity if they have to prepare for Zane Flores and they have to prepare for Sam Jackson V. That's going to be great for Oklahoma State. Not everybody is 100% available, unfortunately, though. This might be a big-time moment once again this season for Trent Allen. That makes my heart happy. But the out players for this game are, of course, Haas Haney, cornerback Caleb Smith, kicker Gabe Panikowski, wide receiver Matrell Lopez, tight end Will Money, tight end Josh Ford, defensive tackle Demarion Thomas, doubtful right guard Noah McKinney, questionable linebacker Brendan Rolls, and Rodney Fields Jr. As it pertains to Texas Tech, they've got Skylar Gill Howard, defensive lineman, out. TJ West, wide receiver, out. Questionable quarterback Baron Morton, quarterback Roy Alexander, wide receiver Roy Alexander, safety Lewis Chapman, and offensive lineman Hunter Zambrano. Probable linebacker John Curry, outside linebacker Romello Height, middle linebacker Jacob Rodriguez, and safety Mikkel Harrison Pilot. That's actually a decent number of individuals that are doubtful, limited, call it what you want, for Texas Tech. But as Oklahoma State, we seemingly are getting some people back. We have less people on this list than we did previously. That always doesn't mean that we're getting them back, right? Because some of the transfer portal dudes aren't on this one, and they were on the last one. So maybe there's some gamesmanship happening. At least none of us are doing what Utah does, which is put out an absolute crap list. That did Cincinnati, I think, tried to do something cute there as well. Regardless, the fact that we are not seeing Zane Flores on this injury list probably is a good thing for Oklahoma State. It does give another layer of dynamics that Texas Tech has to pay attention to. It could be somewhat problematic in them just simply game planning throughout the course of the week, for this ball game. And with Rodney Fields being probable, questionable, whatever the case may be, we did get to see Sesi Vailahe get the most carries he has all season this previous week. I think he did more than enough to earn some more carries this week. But Trent Allen hasn't gotten a ton of opportunities since he put up, 89 yards against Baylor. We've seen flashes or moments from Caleb Hicks since then. We got to see a pretty good, healthy moment from Sesi Vailahe this previous week. I think we need Trent Allen to carry the load in this ball game. Another name, obviously, you didn't see on that list, Jaleel Johnson. Jaleel Johnson hopefully is coming back to make his presence felt. Last week, we finally got to see a healthy version of Deshaun Brown come back, and he had a pretty good game. Not only did he have a good game, he also was immediately able to go out there and get a sack, which has kind of always been Deshaun Brown's Achilles heel. We've seen moments this season out of Sitvini Hifili Kafusi. I like what we're seeing out of Landon Dean, Kyron Duhon, He was 7th, I guess, if I recall correctly, 6th or 7th on the PFF grades this previous week defensively. Puasa Utu keeps popping up. So just because we're getting some guys back, I don't necessarily think that means we need to get rid of the players that have been performing the best recently. And yeah, they're probably not up on the NIL list. They're probably not people that were penciled in to be starters when the season started. But as we're starting to get guys filter back in, I do think that it's important that Doug Meacham, Clint Bowen, Kevin Johns, they continue to play the dudes that have been playing the best. Another surprising thing was this previous week, Oklahoma State was 4th, I believe, 3rd or 4th on defensive line numbers for grading. So we're playing backups and we're playing significantly better. This needs to be a big game for guys like Wendell Gregory. This needs to be another moment for LaDainian Fields to put himself out on display. The special teams guys, I think, have not only been important, but they're making their presence felt out on the football field. I have the hiccups, my apologies. But at the end of the day, this is probably great news for Oklahoma State, not just because Zane's not on the injury report, but because you're seeing guys like Jaleel Johnson come open. And last week we saw a little bit more out of some guys like Deshaun Brown. So it gives us an opportunity to at least keep this game close, which is why we have, before we get to keys to victory, shout out to Steve Lutz in snagging another consensus 4-star individual. And this, ladies and gentlemen, has Oklahoma State currently sitting as the number 4 ranked class in the United States of America. Obviously, we got Latrell Allman, 95 overall, consensus 4-star, 6'8", 225 power forward from Petersburg, Virginia. After we got Jalen Montanati, of course, the homegrown 6'7", 180-pounder, 91 overall, 247. And now we get Parker Robinson, the 6'4", 200-pound shooting guard from Atlanta, Georgia, with a 90 overall rating, has decided to commit to Oklahoma State. And he said something very reminiscent of what Haas Haney said in the offseason, which is, I'm coming to Oklahoma State to make them great again, to have them winning again. Well, that is precisely what we got out of Parker Robinson, and his statement was, I want to be part of bringing Oklahoma State basketball to being really good again. And that's what we need. Thankfully, we're getting it. Before we skedaddle on off of here, it is another opportunity for you to keep your streak alive with DoorDash. This Saturday is almost here, and it's time to take a peek back at this week's MVP, who delivered, powered by DoorDash. Just like you can win every Saturday with DoorDash Streaks, saving more time every order. These players delivered when it matters most, so let's break it down. For Oklahoma State, it's got to go to Rodney Fields. He delivered in a big way, put up 163 yards. He came through when we needed him without hesitation, without delay. And if you've been watching since he's become healthy, it's not a fluke. Rodney Fields is doing the daggone thing. He's officially now on a streak. Just like Rodney Fields delivered for Oklahoma State against Cincinnati, DoorDash delivers for you every Saturday with DoorDash Streaks. You can save every Saturday on your order. Stack it all up throughout the course of the season and save up to $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. Order this Saturday to keep your streak alive. Fuel your game day only with DoorDash. Terms apply, and the promotional period goes through November the 18th. Have your DoorDash streak continued this Saturday with DoorDash. It's also time for you to capitalize, and you need FanDuel to do just that. The NFL season's also going to give us some reprieve this Sunday. If anything doesn't go swimmingly tomorrow. And right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 back in bonus bets if it wins. That's right. You just pick the bet, put down $5. If it hits, you'll unlock $300 back in bonus bets to use all across the app. You're going to love watching football because it makes it more exciting simply because of your investment level. So whether you're the casual fan or you're a diehard that loves diving deep into the stats, FanDuel makes the game day experience so much better for you. So what are you waiting for? Head on over to FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. That is FanDuel.com. Head on over there today. Download the FanDuel app so you can capitalize on your monetary gains with FanDuel. Last but not least, the keys to victory versus Texas Tech, right? Let's call it what it is. This might be the next game that we're physically at a disadvantage since Oregon. But, crazier things have happened. We had no business beating Texas Tech in 2005. If anybody would have looked back and said that Patrick Mahomes never beat Oklahoma State, that would be surprising. So there's a lot of things in this series that have been surprising. There's no doubt that Oklahoma State could get this done. Not only the fact that we have our quarterback coming back and we have some different flexibility now defensively, especially if Jaleel Johnson's coming back to be alongside Deshaun Brown again, but they are playing a backup quarterback. And yes, I know Oklahoma State backup quarterbacks, especially against Texas Tech, is what gave us Alan Bowman. Somebody put out a funny tweet yesterday that Will Hammond will be a 6-year Oklahoma State quarterback here before too long. Anytime you're playing a backup quarterback, if you can give him some things that disguise what the defense is trying to do and give him some unique looks that cause him to put the ball in precarious windows, that could be an opportunity for Oklahoma State. So while Clint Bowen has been calling plays for a long time in Stillwater or necessarily even designing the defense, he does have an extra week now under his belt. So with that knowledge, if there was any hesitation about whether Baron Morton was going to play, hopefully we implemented some wrinkles defensively to keep Will Hammond on his heels. Because if you can get a few turnovers here and if we keep playing competent football like we have done a few different times over the last few different ball games, then you give yourself an opportunity here. You give yourself a chance. So Clint Bowen had some creativity. Give Will Hammond some confusion. Try to make his windows close faster than normal, or try to give him a false sense of security that the pre-snap, post-snap stuff is going to put him in a bad spot. I think that would be a major key to victory here is what can Clint Bowen and this defense do against a backup quarterback that isn't as mobile of a threat as Baron Morton. Another key to victory, in my personal opinion, is we have to get the passing game going, right? Rodney Fields, even fully healthy, probably not going to rush for 163 yards against Texas Tech because this season they're averaging holding teams under 70 yards rushing. So what makes us think that Rodney Fields is going to bust out for another 150, even if he's not 100% healthy? Probably not a lot, which is why I think we should potentially lean on the physicality of Trent Allen and the versatility of Sesi Vailahi, still a very good receiving threat. But we've got to push the ball down the field. Whether it's Sam Jackson V, whether it's Shamar Rigby, whether it's Trent Allen, Zane Flores, doesn't matter. We have had a crazy time this season with chunk plays. They're non-existent unless we're doing some, flea flicker, double reverse pass kind of thing. Our long pass plays has all been off of trickeration. There hasn't been very many instances this season that a wide receiver has gone up and won 50-50 balls. Even if they're turnovers, like we're not going to win ball games scoring 17 points a game. It's just not going to happen. So we need to see the wide receivers make some plays. You have to stretch the field. You have to give Texas Tech's front seven at least something to be a little bit more hesitant about. And thus far, we have not been able to push the ball vertically. If there's good news to Zane Flores potentially coming back for this ball game, it might be just that. Sam Jackson's getting more time. So If the offensive line can continue to do that, and maybe they give that amount of time towards Zane Flores, he can at least push the ball deep. If that doesn't happen, Texas Tech's just going to tee off on us. And no matter who's healthy at running back, it's going to be somewhat insignificant. So I think we have to open up the passing attack. We've got to get Texas Tech to respect what we can do with deep shots, because so far this year, it hasn't happened. Another big time key to victory is, I think, possession, time of possession. We're probably not good enough to get into a track meet. We're probably not good enough to keep them off of the scoreboard. We're probably not good enough in the back end defensively to prevent them from having another quarterback put up 250, 350 yards. But we could do enough if we control the clock to give us a chance in the fourth quarter. And now that we're getting guys healthier, then if we can get the game to the fourth quarter, then you got to like at least our chances at making it a ball game. We finally played for almost 3 quarters of legitimate football against Cincinnati, and then they absolutely ran away with it in the fourth quarter. Depth obviously is a concern there, but if we're starting to get guys back and we're starting to get guys a little bit healthier, if we can play 3 quarters of competent football against Cincinnati, then maybe if you do the same thing against Texas Tech, they have a little bit of a hangover and we catch them napping and get ourselves a nice little W here. Anywho, that's all we're going to have for this one right here. As always, you know I love you. God bless. Go Pokes. Thank you for tuning in to make this your first listening here on Locked On Oklahoma State. You could be anywhere. So happy you choose to be here. Do me a favor, hit the like button if you liked it, dislike if you didn't. That's okay too. More importantly, share, comment, and subscribe my podcast. And people out there, you're everything that makes this work. I appreciate what you do. So go do what you do. Hit the stars. Leave some reviews. Alrighty, y'all. Later, my taters.